And now, the survival show that once survived growing extra fingers, apparently. In this episode, we sit down with Josh to discuss vodka, more vodka, and traveling with firearms. Howdy and welcome to the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 218. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the Rabbit Hole, safe and sound. A quick word of warning and an announcement. So this is a summer short. It's a little longer than normal summer shorts. And when we get into the show itself, you will actually understand why it goes on a little longer than we expected it to. So about the summer short, if you're new here, the show takes a break every summer. And about every 3 weeks, we put out an episode to keep your feed hot and to keep you entertained and informed of something small and interesting that wouldn't normally take up an entire episode. The show will be back in full swing August 7th. Mark your calendars. But between now and then, you'll get a few more ITRH summer shorts. Now, the next thing you should note, we are drinking very heavily in this episode, and we're up very late. And an Armada member of some time now has repeatedly made a special request that we make a drunk ITRH episode, and I kept assuring her I was convinced it would be far less entertaining than she thought it would be. So I am intentionally putting this episode out without even listening to it and editing a single bit, which drives me more crazy than you can possibly imagine. And with all that, the drunk episode. Okay, so this evening, as it actually is, we're joined by Secret. We've had 12 fingers of vodka at this point. So, Kristen, you are getting your wish. This actually is the first aired drunk in the Rabbit Hole podcast, even if it is a summer short.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, but we're all being super safe here. We're going to talk about firearms while intoxicated, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Everything's unloaded, I promise.
And we've been gossiping about all of you like a couple of girls. So, yeah. All right. So, Josh, we are going to talk about traveling with firearms because we've been talking about for the last few episodes, we've been pushing everybody, get out this summer, go get some training. And sometimes with that training, it involves, of course, traveling. Mm-hmm. And, you might be traveling with one of your firearms because it is best, of course, to train with, well, your own junk. Well, that came out weird. But we've been drinking 12 fingers of vodka, so it's all good. I can say these kinds of cheeky things, and the kids don't understand what we're saying. So, Mom and Dad, you're cool. So let's begin with, from the very beginning, we're in Houston, and we want to go. Where are we going to go, Josh? Where are we going to go train so that we can set a destination and how we're going to get there? I guess to map out how we should travel with our firearms.
Oh yeah, let's say we're going to let's just say we're going to go to Tennessee. Just throw it out there.
Okay, so Tennessee. We'll begin with I'm going to get on a plane and go to Tennessee.
Okay.
How do I transport my firearms with me? Hopefully you're going to be on the same plane. I've been on those plane rides where you and your luggage are not on the same ride.
That has happened with me and firearms, which has been a really interesting time.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Yeah, it can be, especially like, you're going someplace and you don't know what's going to greet you whenever you get off the plane on the other side. It's like somebody's going to be like, we have your bag and this is the police. No, it's usually not that bad. So when you're traveling on an airline, obviously the TSA is like the overarching government agency that deals with anything with baggage and traveling with the airline. So they have a pretty set standard rules on what you need to do. Only the problem with that comes with individual airports and then also airline employees. A lot of times they don't understand the rules. So the best thing I can tell anybody that wants to travel is to go to the TSA website and educate themselves on the firearm regulations and rules that they say. Generally, what it is you have to put it in a locked case. Should be a hard case, obviously.
So when you say hard case, you're like, not that people should go out and buy the brand Pelican necessarily, but like a Pelican case.
That is the gold standard typically when you're talking about safe hard cases to travel with. And you need to have your own lock for this. It does not need to be a TSA approved lock.
So are we talking like combination lock, key lock, or does that matter? Or is it just like don't use the same kind of cheap, silly locks you use for your luggage? Is that where you're going with that?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't use a TSA lock that the guy that makes $18 an hour sitting behind the scenes can just unlock and open up whatever he needs to. They're usually pretty good about it. But not only that, but those keys are or have been leaked and people have made copies. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
nothing like that ever
safe.
happens
There's
in the world.
Shenanigans.
No, and so you need to get your own key, hardened key lock, and what that needs to look like is something that's not your cheap number 3 master lock off the shelf. You need to get something a little bit more in depth than that.
Like one of the American-made locks.
American-made locks.
American-made, I don't mean made in America. I mean the brand American
lock. Yeah, that's another good. That's you know a little bit about this. You've been doing this a little while.
No, I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. This is another vodka drink.
I have some more Grey Goose.
There we go.
So.
They are not a sponsor of the show, actually.
Neither of the companies we're mentioning today.
However, they have lubricated it quite well this evening.
Exactly.
Yes. So where were we? So hard case, locks, and then understand the laws. So understand the law of where you're traveling to and understand the law of where you're leaving from. So, and any place that you're going in between, especially. So if you have a connecting flight, right, make sure that if you're going to change planes, that there's a good enough connection time in there that typically with standard luggage, I don't worry about it so much. But if I'm traveling with a firearm, I want to make sure that layover time that I'm switching planes is at least an hour minimum.
So how does that work? I wasn't even expecting to ask this question because we're totally unprepared today, which is great.
No notes.
No notes. We're drunk. It's great. How does that work? So you're in a layover and you've got a firearm and that firearm's in a lockbox. And of course, you cleared it and everything. There's no magazines or ammunition in the actual firearm once you showed it to the TSA agent and everything like that. So you're in a layover. Does your gun just kind of sit in its lockbox with the rest of the traffic, or do they come out and hand it to you or anything? No, I've actually never been in that position before.
Yeah,
where there was a layover.
I guess I should have prefaced this whole thing with essentially you're going to check this bag, this package, right? So this isn't going to be a carry-on, obviously. Like I said earlier, I guess I did preface it, but check the laws with the TSA website, and they will tell you what to do. It's pretty straightforward. When you get to the counter, this all gets checked. They get it cleared. It goes through. So it's like after you check it at the counter and they approve it, it's the same as it would be for any other check bag. Now, when you get to let's say a layover and you have to switch planes or whatever like that, that luggage just goes with everything else down there. Okay. So hopefully they don't slap the firearm label on it. I've had places that say, caution, firearm inside box, and they put a big orange label on it. And then I've had other places that don't do anything. And so I'm like, well, okay, that's cool.
So I have... Okay, I'm not even going to pretend that this is a serious question. But so when you walk up to the counter with your gun in the lockbox, do you declare in very loud and no uncertain terms that you have a firearm in that exact language at the counter?
I declare. No,
I have a gun.
I do not shout it out at the top of my lungs that I declare a firearm. No, I just calmly, normal tone of voice, just tell the gate agent, or not the gate agent, Lord, tell the ticket agent that I'm so-and-so, this is my flight number, and I'm declaring a firearm for a check bag. And what they will do, typically, whenever you're checking it, they will ask to confirm that it's unloaded, and most of them have no idea what the hell they're looking at.
Right.
And so that they'll open it and just say, oh yeah, it looks unloaded. There you go. Now, if you're transporting ammunition inside there, it doesn't need to be in the firearm. Obviously, it has to be unloaded. I always put a chamber flag in my firearms when I'm flying, just for some added indication. If there's any sort of law enforcement guys that end up looking at it, they know what that looks like, typically speaking. And so they know, oh, yeah, that's a chamber flag. That's unloaded. We understand what that looks like. Great. And then any ammunition you travel with needs to be in a covered case. I've had guys fly with them in wooden boxes. I know guys that leave them in the magazine, in the cut foam and down in there, and they're sealed. They can't be loose rounds.
Okay.
Again, just throw just a handful of rounds and then be like, yeah, it's good to go. That'll cause some interesting stir, I'm sure, somewhere at the airport. I typically put mine in either if they're reloads, they're in a reloaded, the typical hard reload case, like a Plano case or whatever, or they're in the stock packaging that it came in. I try not to fly with loaded mags just because I don't want the added hassle of some agent saying, oh, that's not allowed. Never had that problem, but I try. And I always keep if you use a mag loader, throw one in there with it. It's not going to cause any problems. When you get to where you're going, just, don't open it up when you get to where you're going, do not open it up and start loading up a magazine in the baggage claim. That is such a bad idea. I have actually seen somebody do that.
Wait. Is it a mutual friend?
It was not a mutual friend.
Okay. I was just checking.
It's a lot of interesting stuff in North Carolina. But great people, love them there.
Right.
Just saying. That's the airport, not necessarily saying they're from there. They could have been from anywhere, probably Florida. Just kidding. Anyway, so that was an interesting time. Lots of TSA agents on site for that one, and other law enforcement as well. So get to where you're going, get in a private place, load up your stuff. At that point, if you're going to carry, make sure that the laws where you're going, that you can carry there reciprocally if you're going to carry while you're there. If you're going there for training or whatever like that, make sure that you're obeying the travel laws for that state.
So that brings up a good point So you've recently come back from the communist country formerly known as New York.
Yeah, New York City.
And they have some rather interesting not only gun laws, but ammunition laws.
Yeah, very interesting. So my residence was actually in New Jersey, right across from Manhattan. Yeah. So I could see all the fun buildings and everything out my window. And I worked there for a while, a few years. And it was a very interesting time to be a firearm owner and to travel in and out of that area. And pretty much for anybody that wants to travel into New York with a firearm, unless you're going to travel straight through without stopping, I'd say don't do it. Yeah. It's really challenging. Now, the other interesting thing, I'm glad you brought up that place, is because there's been a few states, and I'm pretty sure the NRA actually lists this on their travel website, that New York and New Jersey and the airports that surround that. So that would be Newark, LaGuardia, JFK, and I don't think Teterboro's on there because technically it's a private airport. But you literally, they don't recognize FOPA, which is Federal Firearm Owners Protection Act, which is the federal law that guarantees firearm owners the ability to travel interstate, and be able to traverse that through those borders legally, as long as you have the firearm unlocked or loaded and locked in a case that's not easily accessible to the driver or passengers, and there's not ammunition with it. And so New York and New Jersey and those airports that I just mentioned do not recognize that. Wow. So typically speaking, there have been instances where people have either been harassed or harangued by the police or actually been arrested and charged with a crime for having a firearm in a locked case in a terminal or
under normal TSA kind of rules.
Yeah, under typical laws that are pretty much everywhere else, the law of the land for the rest of the country, those places don't necessarily honor that. And it's really scary. And the first times I went through there, I had no idea or understanding about this. Right. So, and you know me, I'm a pretty well-versed individual when it comes to laws and where I'm going, which is why I'm here speaking about this today. And that was a surprise to me. So I'm glad that the NRA has updated their website with that information. I think that happened a little while back. And so a lot of really interesting things where you're going. So please, folks, check out where you're going and know where you're going and understand the laws of not only the state you're in and where you're heading to, but everything in between. So it is absolutely possible. One of the instances I talked about, so going back to the layover question and then going to the airport question, one of the travelers had a connection in Newark, and he, from my understanding of what happened, he was not able to make his connection. So they issued him his baggage. He went to the hotel, and the baggage contained a firearm in a lock case. He never took it out. It stayed in the lock case the whole time. Went to the hotel airport, came back the next day. As he was coming through the concourse towards the gate agent to check the bag back for the next day's flight, that's when the police stopped him and said, hey, you are in violation of New Jersey law.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I'm traveling. And they said, it doesn't matter. You're under arrest. And that's kind of how that happened. So definitely be careful traveling through those areas. As far as traveling in a vehicle through those areas, New Jersey is not that bad of a place. If you're just traveling through and you don't plan on stopping too much, New York City, don't even bother. New York State, don't even bother. Just drive through and don't stop if you can help it.
Yeah.
Or just avoid them entirely if you have that ability. So that's generally my rule of thumb for anybody that was traveling through there. I have several friends that came for classes or reasons or whatever going through New York City out to Long Island because it's really nice out there. And they did not even bother bringing firearms because it was just so much of a problem with things like the New York Safe Act and the ammunition laws and things like that in New Jersey. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So
I knew another school out there, and they actually went through the trouble. God, they must have spent a fortune on it, but they actually went through the trouble of buying firearms. And they would just, when you showed up, they had firearms available for you. I don't know what went on that they had I'm not even going to comment on that. I don't know what they did, but it was basically like, look, guys, leave your guns at home. We got you covered when you get here. And they provided because it was just such a hassle. So, and you bring up an interesting point as far as driving. So what do you do with driving? Is it you sit down and look at a map and say, I'm going to be driving through these different cities and states and call ahead to DPS? How do you figure out like how that works?
So if you have any really specific questions about the state you're traveling through, you can absolutely call the local DPS. They may or may not have an accurate answer for you. And just keep in mind that none of this is legal advice. And especially anything that you speak to a DPS officer on the phone about is not going to be actual legal advice that you can represent yourself in court with. Generally speaking, that's not going to hold up that well. So what I suggest you do is go to NRA ILA's website, and they have a reciprocity information, and they offer as much close to legal advice as you can get. And then also, I believe it is USA Carry or Concealed Carry. It's one of the websites. Just type in Concealed Carry Reciprocity in your favorite search engine, and they all have a map there that's pretty accurate. Again, anything that happens legislatively, they try to keep up with it as quick as they can. But you can select the state that you have a concealed carry permit in and find out where it's reciprocal at. So, and those light up in blue, and the other states that you don't light up in red. So it's pretty obvious to say, okay, well, I can plan my route through these states if I'm carrying a regular firearm. Now, if you're going to plan on carrying, that's a handgun typically. So if you're going to plan on carrying a rifle or a shotgun or something like that in your vehicle, a lot of concealed handgun or concealed weapon laws don't necessarily apply to those types of things. So you need to make sure wherever you're going, you understand the laws and the logistics for those types of specific weapons that you're going to bring through there. So like in Texas, for instance, a lot of people don't know that we actually have a limit on the length of the pocket knife that you can carry. Even though you can carry things like assisted openers or now spring-loaded knives recently, there's still a governing limit on how large that blade can be. So people coming from other states that have a 6-inch folding knife or something like that they want to keep in their pocket, that's technically by the letter of the law illegal in Texas. So, but most people don't know that because it's not usually readily, or it's not usually enforced that much. So that's just an idea of something that, well, I don't think anything about going to Louisiana and carrying the same pocket knife I have in Texas, but it might not work the same way in the other way.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know we ran into that years ago when Jonathan and I were on our way to New Mexico or something. And I don't remember how it came up, but we actually at the last minute found out that as we were traveling through San Antonio, that locking blades are cool everywhere else except in San Antonio. San Antonio, it was like really serious crime to have a locking blade knife in San Antonio. And it was just like, okay, well, just, fortunately, Aaron, drives like your grandmother is driving through San Antonio. So there's no chance we're getting pulled over here. But it was just like, all right, everybody behave. Like, leave your zero tolerance knives in the truck. If for some reason we get out to go get drinks or whatever, just stop and get gas or something like that. And I think that's the tricky part of that too, is understanding, all of those laws. And just if you're going to a specific city, sometimes the city has extra special little laws on top of whatever the state has.
Right. Some states actually, do put laws in place that say that jurisdictions inside cities, municipalities, and things like that aren't allowed to supersede state law. However, some states don't. For instance, New York, they don't have that law. So a folding locking pocket knife is legal outside of New York City. But the moment that you step into New York City with the folding pocket knife, that's a serious crime. And they've been locking people up for it. I actually worked with several guys that were charged because they had folding pocket knives on them. Also, one of the local, the Stagehands Union, they have to have locking blades of some sort, either a razor blade or a folding pocket knife. And these guys working on Broadway kept getting arrested because they had these, because the union required them to have this tool. And the city outlawed it. So it was really kind of an interesting time with a lot of that going on. Most of the prosecution rates, the follow-through rates on those are pretty low, but it's still going to be on your record. Yeah. It's still going to be there. You can plead down. 2 guys I know that got arrested with it for sure were, not sure about the third one, but 2 guys I know personally. One pleaded down, and then the other one was able to get off of the charge completely. Wow. So yeah, it's really tough to tell people, hey, go to New England and enjoy yourself whenever, you can't really have a lot. That being said, by the letter of the law, a fixed blade knife that's concealed under 4 inches is legal in New York City. From my understanding. Now, good luck telling a cop that it's legal and getting off of that charge, but the way that the law sits, to my understanding today, that's how it is. And so
I think, it sounds like it's not only check the state, but also check the city, check knife laws, and check gun laws, check reciprocity. And actually, there are a bunch of knife websites, too, because there's a bunch of active knife groups.
There are a lot of active knife groups. And even some of the big 2A groups have been picking up knife rights because it's been a big deal. A lot of people have been denied their ability to carry knives or edged weapons in certain places. And that's a concern because it starts with one thing and then it can always lead to something else.
Exactly.
So it's absolutely something that we all need to be concerned about to a degree, whether you choose to be a rights extremist on that regard or, very liberal in your thinking on it. I don't have a preference, but just be aware of it, be knowledgeable of what you're doing and where you're going and what you have.
Awesome advice, dude. Josh, thank you. And I'm amazed that actually with the amount of vodka that the 2 of us have consumed and the amount of hours we've been sitting here gabbing like a couple of old chickens, a couple of old hens, we've made it through. And with that is your first I2H Summer Short.